Hey there everybody, how's it going? This is John Matthew and you're watching CineManiacs 24/7, a channel dedicated to movies, music, physical media, books, video games and pop culture. In my previous James Bond video, we discussed about the top 10 best James Bond movies. We ranked few of them and your response on that particular video has been phenomenal. So thank you all for actually watching the video and staying with me till the end. Now, this particular video is dedicated to another side of James Bond. You people all know the idea that James Bond is one such secret agent whom we all know. 6 decades, 6 different actors, so many movies to choose from. The James Bond series has been extremely successful at the box office and raked in millions of dollars. But amidst all the glamour and glitter that you see in the James Bond movies, there is one side that is never explored. There is one particular side that is never ever given light. That is the worst James Bond movies. Yes, most of the James Bond movies for let's say a good amount of time have been big hits and very successful at the box office, also being iconic in the eyes of the audience and the critics alike. But there are a few movies in all the eras of the actors who've played the character that have been actual abominations. These movies have been so bad that they completely ended up either killing the actor's career as James Bond or they ended up actually killing the whole franchise itself. Yes, today we are going to discuss some of the worst James Bond movies ever made across all the eras with the only exceptions of Daniel Craig movies, which are a completely different affair to me, and I'll talk about those videos or talk about those movies in some other video another time, but not today. Today we are going to only discuss some of the worst James Bond movies that have come out in the period of 1962 to 2002. That is 4 decades, the worst films that have come out ever. So stay cool guys as we go on to explore some of the most underrated James Bond sides. Make sure you hit that subscribe button before we even get started, and without any further delays, please hold your vodka martinis as we go on completely blasting James Bond. Number 5 here on my list is the Roger Moore James Bond movie called Moonraker. This movie is an abomination of a movie, considering the fact that it was following the much superior and much more celebrated 1977 movie called The Spy Who Loved Me. This film has an absolutely lackluster premise. The stunt sequences are actually okayish to, completely illogical. The Bond girl does not make sense at all. The villains are cringy, and of course, when I come about the villain, of course, happened to be one of the most celebrated actors of French cinema who was aptly wasted in this film. The idea that this movie was increasingly campy and this campiness would continue on to the 1985 movie A View to a Kill as well is actually surprising to watch on screen. A lackluster premise, a completely wasted potential of the actors, and that amazingly inspired Star Wars cameos were absolute crap. This movie is just a piece of abomination that should not be ever counted in the Bond archives. This is number 5 for me, Roger Moore's Moonraker. Number 4 here on my list is the 1985 Bond movie called A View to a Kill. This is the worst Roger Moore Bond movie ever, trust me. A movie that was supposed to be the final role for Roger Moore as James Bond should have gone out with a bang and completely, created a blast, but unfortunately none of that took place. This movie had a lackluster premise, a very cartoonish villain, an aging Roger Moore who was very obviously trying to look young, but that's not his fault. He was looking very old on screen. The poorly written Bond girls and some of the action sequences were absolute crap. This is number 4 for me, Roger Moore's A View to a Kill. Number 3 here on my list is the 1971 Sean Connery Bond movie called Diamonds Are Forever. This movie is an absolutely bad movie when we compare Sean Connery's standards, because his Bond movies were inherently always serious and very to the point enjoyable. But this movie completely turns the tables around. An aging Sean Connery, poorly written Bond characters, the hilarious villain, sidekicks thrown into the mess without a reason, some poorly written screenplay. This movie was completely insulting the legacy of James Bond that Sean Connery had created up until that point. So this is number 3 for me, Sean Connery's Diamonds Are Forever. Up here on number 2 is the 1974 Bond movie called The Man with the Golden Gun. This movie is a very disappointing follow-up to Live and Let Die, considering that its predecessor was much more better and much well written than this one. It has idiotic stunt work, all thanks to this scene that you're seeing here, which had a very hilarious soundtrack, the lackluster screenplay that does not do any justice to the movie anywhere, the wasted Bond girls with Maud Adams being the most wasted character in the entire film, the unintentional humor that does not serve any purpose to the story and completely diverts the story's progress, a lack of seriousness as opposed to what the Sean Connery movies are very famous at doing. This film completely downed the legacy of James Bond for me in terms of seriousness. This is Roger Moore's The Man with the Golden Gun. And now, the worst movie of them all, that is Die Another Day. This is the James Bond movie that will forever be a black mark on the James Bond series. A movie with a very, very poorly written premise, an absolutely bad cast, bad writing, bad direction, bad CGI. Everything about this movie is so very bad. It's funny how this movie actually managed to make so many dollars at the box office even with all the number of flaws that it had. Halle Berry trying to be Ursula Andress, which of course failed in many bad ways. Pierce Brosnan trying his level best to give it a good shot. Of course, he was the only one who succeeded to do his job well. The other aspects of the film were absolutely hilarious, and I'm still in awe looking at the idea that why this film was so bad. So this, guys and gals, was the worst James Bond movies list with all the movies combined from almost all the eras from 1962 to 2002. The Daniel Craig movies are a different issue that we will tackle on sometime later. If this video also becomes a success like the previous one that I had made on the channel, I'll be making more and more James Bond videos in the future, and a video about the next James Bond series is already in production, so stay tuned till that time. Stay safe, guys, take care, and see you soon.